Hi, everybody. I'm Rebecca Chaplin with AARP here with a colleague, a friendly person. Happy to be here with Rose Hoban, the moderator of today's event.
Hi.
You, you
Hi,
have
Rebecca.
Hi, Rose. Thanks for working with us on this. I can think of no one better than Rose to moderate such a discussion. And today's discussion is In My Shoes. Let's get to the soul of the North Carolina voter. Soul like the sole of the shoe, of course. We're not digging into anyone's souls today, but part of our role at AARP is to elevate the voices of people 50 plus because we know that people 50 plus are the largest voting bloc. They're going to show up at the polls. In fact, they already are showing up at the polls. We know voting has started, and we already have, I think it looks like 105,000 votes accepted via mail and over 1,300,000 votes via one-stop early voting. So people are out there voting. Yes, that's what we want. And, although people 50 plus are the largest voting bloc, they often feel ignored, like their voices aren't heard. So we're just continuing day by day here at AARP to amplify those messages. So today we have three interesting guests that will be with us to share their unique points of view and what they're thinking about and looking to as they go to the polls. Rose, any comments from you just as to what you're seeing in the public through the NC Health News about voting this year?
Well, I want to introduce I'm the editor and founder of North Carolina Health News. And, we talk to voters. We know that healthcare issues are top of mind, especially the cost of healthcare is a big issue out there. For folks who use it, the sign up period for the Affordable Care Act just started this week. I'm working on a story about insurance rates for next year. So, and I voted yesterday. I was going to wear my sticker. I
Great.
forgot to wear my sticker. And I'm guessing, a lot of you folks out there are weighing your votes just as we speak. So, what the one thing though, I'm curious. You were talking about this In Your Souls a campaign, Rebecca. Tell us a little more about it. Like, what is it, and what kind of feedback did you get?
Yeah, the campaign is really take a walk in my shoes, and the soul piece is just kind of a play on words about North Carolinians specifically. But what we're learning is that really concerns about inflation are at the top of the mind for many people. And the data shows that 50 plus community members, regardless of political party, are more likely to vote for congressional candidates who vow to protect Social Security and Medicare and to lower prescription drug prices. So we see those healthcare and long-term care or long-term financial and health security needs really rising to the top for many people. So I would say that's huge. So and financial security and people wanting to age in place is also a top issue as we age not just the home, but the home and community-based services that allow us to age in place is something on the minds of people, especially in gubernatorial races. So
Mhm.
that's some of what we're finding through the research. I'll put a link in the comment section for those who want to learn more about the whole campaign, Take a Walk in My Shoes. And I'll go ahead, Rose, and let you get started speaking with our first community resident, North Carolinian.
Terrific. Thanks, Rebecca. Now we're going to turn to some folks who will outline some of the issues that AARP has found from their research. First, we're going to talk to Councilwoman Veronica Carter, who's been on the town council in the Brunswick County community of Leland since 2019, and she's going to serve until next year. So, welcome, Councilwoman Carter.
Thank you.
Um, I wanted to start by asking you to talk about where you live a little bit, and how is sort of the place for you shaping your vote?
Well, I live in the most southeastern county in North Carolina. Our neighbor to the south is Horry County, where Myrtle Beach is located. Our neighbor to the east is New Hanover, where the city of Wilmington is located, and our neighbor to the west is Columbus County, which is more of a rural, poorer county than most. Brunswick County is one of the fastest growing counties in North Carolina and, frankly, in the country. And the town that I'm very proud to serve on their governing body is one of the fastest growing municipalities. When I moved here in 2004 with my late dad, we had about 2,000 residents. We are now at over 26,000.
Wow. And I understand that there are a lot of older people who are moving to Brunswick County. What's
That's
going on there?
That's true. As much as my town manager hates to admit that, we the numbers have shown differently. There are quite a number of older folks. It's like retirees. When I moved here, I was kind of sort of a retiree. I say kind of sort of. I'm a military retiree. I retired from the army, but I was still working. I was in my 40s, so I was still working. But a lot of people from the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, and then the mid-Atlantic states of around the DC area, Virginia, Maryland, DC, seem to have found North Carolina, and in particular Brunswick County, as their forever home, if you will, with retirement. We are near the beach, but we're not, and we do have beach towns in Brunswick County. Leland is not one of them, but we're very close to the beach, even if you are inland of the coast or our boundaries. And so we enjoy warmer weather for that reason, not warm, because it does get to freezing sometimes. And so there are lots of things to do here and just beauty. And for a while, at least, the cost of living was quite nice. We're starting, because we are popular, starting to see that our cost of living has gone up. And that is some of the concerns, particularly with people who are older and on a fixed income, as well as some of our younger people, are getting priced out of the market to buy homes. And it's a
Mhm.
concern of mine personally. As an elected official, I want to ensure that we have workforce and affordable housing.
So yeah, and that was what I was going to ask, so that means that I'm guessing that some of these economic issues are top of mind.
Mhm.
What are you hearing from friends, family, your constituents who are over 50 about their top issues and concerns this
Oh
year?
my goodness. When you get people coming from all different places, they have all different issues. And so, because many of our residents are educated and retired and been in the workforce, they do their homework. And so we have everything from people being concerned about a woman's right to choose to voting rights to affordability, which I think is across the board, where people are just
Mhm.
worried about the price of gas, the price of food, Social Security and Medicare issues, healthcare in general, but also those housing issues. As people try to, workers try to come in and live that same comfortable life that many of us came in here to enjoy, they find out they can't, not only can they not afford a house, they can't even find an affordable apartment. And so those are all top issues. It's hard sometimes to teach people that there are different levels of government. And so that not all levels, not everyone at every level of government can affect every issue. But that's probably been my little pet peeve, is that I need people to do their homework. But then I was a political science major. I've loved this stuff. I've been geeking out on it for years. So um, I just want folks to do their homework. When they go vote, I want them to do their homework. Don't just take my word for it. Just go out there and check for yourself.
I think about older voters, and we've been researching some stories about caregivers,
Hmm.
right? Like caregivers, they don't make a ton of money, but they need to be able to live in your community.
Absolutely.
Are you hearing from folks like that who?
My dad needed a caregiver. I was still working when he became ill. He had dementia, and I was still out there in the workforce. So I was blessed to find a wonderful caregiver, but she was struggling. And I was trying to help her because I knew she was doing marvelous things with my dad, and he felt safe with her. I felt safe with her. But just again, trying to find the right caregiver, trying to find someone who is not struggling themselves. You'll hear stories of folks that say, I can't find a caregiver because they're moving away, because they can't afford to live here, or they have moved so far inland to more rural communities that it takes them 60 to 90 minutes to get here,
Wow.
which is almost unheard of. But they can't find an apartment. They can't find a place to live that they can afford in our area. We're really kind of a suburb of Wilmington, and so we suffer from that as well, not just our own identity, but having people come across the bridge for a cheaper place to live as well.
Mhm. What's important for you when you're selecting a candidate you're going to vote for?
I'm an issues person. I'm an unaffiliated voter, purposefully. Again, that's my political science background. I want you to tell me what, it's kind of the old Janet Jackson song, "What have you done for me lately?" I want you to tell me what you're going to do for me to make my life better. One of my mottos when I was running was, I wanted to make Leland better than I found it. I think that everyone who runs for office should have that theme, that they want to go someplace and they want to make it better than it was when they got there. That's not saying it wasn't good. That's not, but we can always be better. And
Mhm.
so that's what I want people to tell me. How are you going to make my life better? How are you going to make my life more secure or safer? whether that be safe water, safe air, the economy, or my rights, which are very, very important to me. I want you to tell me how you're going to make things better. And I want you to be realistic about it. Okay, don't lie to me because I do my homework.
Right, right. It's easy to make promises. It's, there's that old joke about campaigning versus being in government, right? Campaigning is heaven and governing is hell.
Right.
Right.
That's the way of looking at it. Okay.
Right.
I'm not sure campaigning is actually all that
Well, the promises you
either,
make,
but
the promises you make are heavenly. So if you have a new candidate who, hasn't served in government, like, how do you assess that person?
well, I hadn't served in government.
Mhm.
I had worked for the government. Again, being a retired Army officer, I was also a civil servant, but I'd never served in government. I'd studied it. I knew what it was supposed to do, which I think is important. You need to know what your government is supposed to do before you run around and say it's broken. Maybe it's not broken. Maybe the person who's supposed to implement a certain rule or ordinance or task is broken, or maybe you as a constituent are broken because you haven't gone out and gotten involved and told people what you need, what you want.
Mhm.
So you've got to know, do your homework. You've got to be involved. You can't just be, someone sitting on the sidelines complaining all the time. Unfortunately, I look out into my town council chambers sometimes, and this is pre-COVID, and I see very few people, or I see the same people. But yet, if we make a decision that is unpopular or it's about to be controversial, that room will be standing room only. I
Mhm.
remember the two new council members who took the chairs in November. December showed up and nobody was there really in January, February. And I said, I don't get this. Why aren't people involved? I said, wait till the first controversial issue comes up. And we've had a few of them. And I said, you always know if it's going to be an interesting meeting by whether or not the parking lot is filled. If the parking lot's full, people, I said, in this area, in our area, because again, we have older folks who have time to do their research or used to doing their research, they will show up and they will let us know exactly what they're interested in.
Well, this has been great. It's so great to hear from an elected official because you sort of talk about it from the other side. So thank you, Councilwoman Carter.
You're welcome.
And we're going to now talk to a constituent. Our next guest, Stephen Lee, lives in the rural mountains of North Carolina in Buncombe County, a little bit northwest of Asheville. Welcome, Stephen. Tell us a little bit about where you live.
Well, I live very close to the Pisgah National Forest, but it's in a valley, so there's farmlands near where I live, but you can be in the mountains in a matter of minutes. The space itself that my wife and I live in, because she's an artist, is an older factory building that's been updated to have essentially a studio space and living space all together.
Mm-hmm.
So it just makes it much easier to work in the studio, be able to go in and out at any hour, especially when kilns are being fired. So it's something that, when I think about us being here, we wanted to leave the Boston area. We knew it would be a healthier area, food-wise, consciousness-wise, and that was our purpose. So it suits our needs very well.
How long have you been there?
Almost 10 years now.
Okay, so you're not a newcomer anymore.
No, well, but I'll always be an outsider.
That is true. So this year, what issues are top of mind for you when you're thinking about who you're going to vote for?
I think the most important thing to me is that we are looking to have reassurance that health needs will be met. We applaud, the increases in some cases for things. For example, dental care.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's sort of an under considered problem with older people, as in all it takes is one crown to ruin your budget. And so, for example, in my case, not my wife's, but mine, I do have a dental benefit. It's not a lot, but it's appreciated. So that kind of stability in healthcare, and then adding value where it needs to be, because older people will have, I think, more dental issues just as a case of something that they can do to help older people.
I don't even want to think about my teeth. And last year I lost my mom at 93. She had so many dental problems near the end of her life. And it was really challenging finding a dentist who could do the work for her, right? Who specialized in
Right.
older adults. I hope this is I'm guessing, Stephen, that maybe you qualify for Medicare?
Well, no, I'm on Medicare. Yes.
Okay, all right. Yeah, because just,
I know I look like 50, but
right. You look super young. But so these healthcare issues, you're aware that there are some changes that are going to be coming to Medicare. What are some of the more specific healthcare issues that you're worried about policy-wise?
well, the expense of drugs. I mean, it's true all over the place. I think that I may be an example of a common couple situation where one of the people has greater medical needs than another. And in particular, my wife has greater medical needs, and therefore we see a lot of medication. And again, it's interesting that when you think about Medicare from this grand view, it's going to alleviate a lot of the uncertainty and costs that seniors have.
Mm-hmm.
But when you step back and look at dental costs, co-payments, the fact that each of them does have a minimum that they'll attain before it does 100% of the payments.
Mm-hmm.
There's sort of a drip that goes along throughout the year. So, again, now when I think about us as an average couple, I suspect that's true, where one or the other may have greater needs, hopefully not both. And that's sort of very destabilizing. It also kind of goes back to the caretaker thing. So one person provides the caretaking in a situation. And part of that, I think, is in an effort to minimize other costs almost, providing your own self-care. But when I think about that, I remember in economics, they talked about the opportunity costs of things. So if you're providing care, then you're maybe not doing some alternative, whether it's volunteering or it's farming or there's always a balance that has to happen. And that's far more visible to seniors than I think most people are thinking about.
Mm-hmm. What are you hearing from other folks in your community in the run up to the election?
I think we all surround ourselves often with people that think similar to our thinking.
Right.
I think Medicare is a big deal. Prescription drugs is a big deal. I think there's a awareness of climate change for people at a certain level, that they want to see some sort of one, I think almost acceptance, so that everyone understands what's going on. It affects your insurance, it affects your health, it affects all these other things. So having an acceptance of it is first important, and then secondarily, how can we start to make those changes?
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be great if we could all own, for example, a Tesla, but I'm not sure we can. Maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, but and it's so that actually, in a funny way, speaking of climate change, it's like we've recently got a newer car. It'll be our main car again. Older seniors wanting to kind of get, this is the one that has the lane change warning and the other features, so us older folks can make sure we stay in the middle. But it's a matter of saying the next car we get will likely be an electric car.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the major things is, by not having a job to go to each day, your mileage is down. So that's a good thing in terms of the economics, which you struggle with all the time anyway. And again, it's a consciousness that I think a lot of older people are thinking about, and yet we're not the generation that's probably buying electric cars too quickly yet.
Mm-hmm.
But it offers economic benefits, less expensive once you own one, I think. And indirectly, health issues, we're out of the combustion engine, we're into a safer, and it's just the whole thing.
You hear a lot of people going like, oh, both parties are the same. I just have one vote. It really can't make a difference. What do you say when you hear someone say that?
Um, I guess my sense is that first of all, it takes all kinds of people in this world. So I wouldn't want to sort of judge somebody, but I would say that in my opinion, my vote does count at some level, and it's worth the effort to do it. But finding people who are so cynical that they feel it's not worth their time or energy is probably not productive. And yet, the other thing that you touch on is seniors have the time, Rebecca touched on this, have the time to generally do it more than maybe people who are working and work late and can't get to the polls or whatever. So I maybe, how's the word frustrated? That would express that it really is worth the effort to do it. I've done it all my life since I was 18 and feel like it's an honor that we should all take advantage of.
Yeah, I know that for myself, part of the reason that I do local journalism and state-based journalism is that you feel like you have more of an impact, right? Like, I'm not sure, like, okay, I'm one vote for Congress, right, out of millions, but like in my town, I'm one vote out of a couple hundred. So, right, it's a huge deal, especially those local levels that get real close to you. So,
Yes.
well, thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate you taking some time to talk to us today. And our next guest is Carol Goins. She's a local volunteer in her community through the Asheville chapter of the Lynx. So welcome, Carol.
Thank you for having me this afternoon.
And tell us a little bit about the community that you live in, Carol.
I live in the city of Asheville, up in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Buncombe County.
And so since you're in the city, I'm guessing that the issues that are of importance to you this year during the election cycle are slightly different from the ones that are important to Steve, who's more rural. What issues are top of mind for you this year?
Well, actually, I don't think they're different at all. The environment is very important to those of us who live in the mountains. Our economy is very heavily tourist based. Access to getting all of that is important. People are concerned about the preservation of our democracy. If that's where all our rights flow from. If we don't have a democracy, we don't have the right to vote. If we don't have the right to vote, then we don't have a say on who is going to make the decisions. We talked about healthcare, pricing of medicines, things like the education, things like that. Those are all decided by people who are elected, hence our vote. There are issues about cost of medications. Are vision and dental covered? Are hearing aids covered under Medicare, and some insurance policies? And how much are they going to charge? And it's also important, I think, and there's been a big push, and I'm hearing people discuss this in the community, about making sure you're an informed voter. And make sure you understand everybody's on the ballot. Everybody knows generally who runs for president, governor, maybe Senate. But do you know who's running for the North Carolina Court of Appeals? Do you know who's running for the North Carolina Supreme Court? The judicial branch is a co-equal third of our government. And what they do or don't do, or how they do it, or when they do it, will affect all the other branches, the legislative and the executive branch. Same thing with our local judges. If you're going to have a speeding ticket, if you're going to get divorced, if you are the victim of a crime, if you've been charged with a crime, who's sitting on the bench and how they rule or don't rule can have a direct impact on you and on your community. So I just think it's important, and what people are finally understanding, that you have to vote the ballot from the top to the bottom and flip it over sometimes. And just make sure that you make an informed vote, and that the person that you are supporting is the one who best represents your views and what you want to see accomplished within our government and our greater society.
And you can get lots of information from the local parties. You You would hope that there's like a voting guide in your local
Yes.
media. I
Yes.
know that there's the Asheville Citizen Times up there. There's the Asheville Watchdog. There's
Mhm.
a number of smaller publications. So those are great places to find
Mhm.
out information about things like local judges races. Those are huge.
Mhm.
Um,
And
we,
it never hurts to just ask.
Mhm.
Ask your friend, ask your neighbor, your coworker off time, maybe from work, or your church member, or people in the community. If you want to know about the judges, ask a lawyer or a courthouse clerk,
Mhm.
people who work within that environment. I mean, the information is there. All the candidates have websites. You're right, the parties have information available about their particular slates. There's nonpartisan organizations
Mhm.
like Legal Women Voters, things like
Vote
that, where you
411 is another
exactly
one. Mhm.
Democracy NC,
Mhm.
or North Carolina, where you can, again, nonpartisan organizations that can give you this. This is the office. This is who's running. Here's some basic information um, that you can get to know who's running.
Mhm. Speaking of talking to other folks, like what are you hearing from other people in your community about voting this year? Are people fired up, or are they kind of, more apathetic? What's
Um,
the
the,
zeitgeist?
the people that I'm talking to and that I'm hearing talk are very excited. Voting is a right and it's a responsibility. People have fought, gone to jail, and been killed for our rights to vote. And so I think it is our responsibility to honor those sacrifices of those who went before us who couldn't vote.
Mhm.
Um, and it's our responsibility as Americans to vote. We have to participate in our democracy if we want to keep it. Our voice is our vote.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I said that backwards. Our vote is our voice.
Well, I mean, it's not that far off. And you're an attorney. Like, how does that color your decision to vote? Is it that you're so engaged in the law? Like, how does that inform your decision to vote?
Well, like the councilwoman, my undergraduate degree is in political science, and I grew up in Raleigh, right in the heart of the North Carolina state capitol. I grew up in and out of the legislative building, um, events at the governor's mansion. So that was something I was always a part of. Grew up around people who were very politically informed and active participants, registering people to vote, working the polls, um, reminding people to vote,
Mhm.
um, working with their legislators, state and federal, to make sure voting polls were in all communities, or all communities had convenient access to the polls. Because if it's fine to say we've got a poll, but if you don't have a ride, or especially for older people who maybe don't drive, they may live in more remote areas, and you got to find somebody to take you way in somewhere, that can be difficult. So making sure everyone has access to the polls. There is North Carolina NC Disability, I believe, I think is the website that has information for people who are less able about how they can vote. You get curbside voting where you don't have to get out of the car. They'll bring the ballot to you, and you don't have to get out and go in or stand in line if you're older or if you're disabled. Did that with my father, and they brought it right out, and he just got a big kick out of them bringing the ballot to him in the car, so he could vote.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of things out there. I think people are engaged, and they're taking it very, very seriously this year.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Carol. I really appreciate you giving us your thoughts on voting and local elections. And I want to thank all of our guests and viewers and encourage all you viewers to vote. You can share the content of this video by clicking share. You can check out AARP's North Carolina Voting Guide, and Rebecca is going to put the link into the chat. So one more time, I'm Rose Hoban from North Carolina Health News. Really appreciate you taking some time here today with Carol, Steve, and Councilwoman Veronica Carter. And thank you so much to all three of our guests. Thanks to Rebecca for asking me to join you here today. And I think we're going to wrap things up.